All right, it's 7:30 p.m. on October 3rd, 2022. We're going to begin this regular meeting of the Rutherford Board of Education. We'll ask everyone who can to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll ask Mr. Kelly to please take roll.
Mrs. Ahmed?
Here.
Mr. Bogosian?
Present.
Mr. Conti?
Present.
Mr. Healy?
Here.
Mrs. Jones?
Present.
Mr. Mazzone?
Here.
Dr. Racine?
Here.
Mr. Sprayberry?
Present.
Dr. Olati?
Here.
You have a quorum.
The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meeting of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Rutherford Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place posted on the bulletin board outside the Borough Clerk's office, mailed to the Herald, South Bergenite, and the Record newspapers, and filed with the Borough Clerk. Hard copies of the agenda are available in the meeting room, and the agenda is posted electronically on Friday before the meeting date on the district's website at www.rutherfordschools.org. Subsequent to the meeting, a video of the meeting will be uploaded to the district's website, www.rutherfordschools.org. The video link can be found by opening the Board of Education link and clicking on Public Meetings and then Videos. In your packets, board members, there were minutes to approve of the regular meeting on September 12th, 2023. Anyone have any comments about those minutes? Seeing none, I'll ask Mr. Kelly to please enter those. So we are going to begin with the report of the student representative, Ms. Bimson. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Turn it over to you.
Thank you. I just want to start. It feels good to be back. Thank you for having me again. I have actually more to update. I'm pleased to update more. Firstly, back to school night was about 2 weeks ago. It was a success. Parents and students and teachers got to meet for the first time and feel the energy out that's circulating through the school. The first fall pep rally, which was post-COVID, hasn't been done for about 3 years. It happened about 3 weeks ago, kickstarted our school's pride. Everyone was super pumped for that. The RHS football boys won their divisional championship last week too, so that got the dog pound and the student section a lot livelier and larger this year. Even a teacher that always attends the football games told me how it's the most she's ever seen in probably 10 years. A lot of kids joining, which is amazing. So besides athletic accomplishments and support, students are anticipating homecoming. The dance is this Friday, and the parade is this Saturday. The parade takes place in the morning, and students get to meet with their classes and march down from the high school to Tryon Field. It's like a super amazing morning, and a lot of parents love to watch and see, so I encourage kids and parents to take part. So on extracurricular side, clubs have issued their interest meetings and basically have formed who's joined so far. So students can participate in clubs ranging from social justice like seminars to an Italian culture club. So there's kind of something for everyone. The Unified Club and National Honor Society have also issued Newark Public Schools donation boxes. So that's for more student involvement as well. The Rutherford Marching Band has grown and has seen exponential students joining because the newest coordinator, Mr. Joe Cabeza, recently has helped the band become even better. Here in the Bulldog Award also, this morning was announced to have a Bulldog Award, which was just to highlight his accomplishments for the school. So academics are also still super important. Seniors and juniors took their SATs this past weekend, and sophomores prepare to take them in a week or two. So students have settled into their classes and are excited to be back and kind of are in the swing of things as well. I have a couple additional notes because students and myself are super grateful for the new signs that have been placed on the school. Everyone's talking about how it supplies unity and pride, and people are happy, Bulldog spirit. I was also just have a quick question to ask because students were talking about the backfield being turfed. So I was just wondering if you could confirm that or not. And I have nothing else there, so I want to thank you. And any questions?
You want me to answer?
Thank you. First off, that was very thorough and well-rounded. Appreciate the focus on athletics, academics, extracurriculars. Excellent. You had a particular question you want to confirm, so
I'll answer
Mr. Hurley.
that. It's a good question.
Yeah.
Very good question. As obviously the backfield has been a subject of discussion, I'll be honest with you, since 2003, okay, when I was principal, after we did the last, that referendum, that facilities improvement, what was not a very good field got a lot worse because of the landfill and whatever that was put on there. And we have had a lot of different discussions, and it was part of the first referendum this time around that was defeated, and we took it out of the second referendum. So to answer your question, it's still very much on the table for discussion. It's something that I think the board is aware of, and certainly I'm aware of, and I think the community is aware of, that both for functionality and aesthetics needs to be done. It's just a question of how and when, but it is something that once we get through this project, we're going to be talking about very earnestly. I can't tell you or anyone else that it's going to get done or when, but it's something I think everybody knows that we have to try to work on to get done.
Okay, thank you.
As far as your report, I want to echo what Dr. Alati said. And I was speaking with Mr. Morano today about the energy in the building, which he feels is as high or higher than it's ever been.
Yeah.
I think he told me that at the homecoming dance, which we used to have maybe 180, 220, 230 students, I think they sold 500 tickets.
Yeah, it actually this year, kids couldn't, there were not enough tickets for so many kids signing, waivers to go, which is super excited. And it's always in this cafeteria.
Yeah, it's going to be in the
and
gym.
they have to move it to the gym.
They'll move it
because
to the
so many
gym,
kids
right.
came. Yeah.
So again, I think, I think we have to stop talking about COVID. I mean, I've been trying to. And I think some of it may be, we're back and people have missed it, but I think there's more to it than that. I think there's just a very positive energy. I think it's reflected in the attendance at events, the participation tonight. The board's going to be asked to approve a couple of new clubs, and when we get and these are clubs that students have come to, or teachers have come forward and said, we want to start a club that's going to write letters to senior citizens, or we want to become a home base for donating dresses for proms to other districts instead of sending it off to someplace else. And these are things that I think the students and the faculty are coming for. Is not necessarily that they're getting a lot out of it, giving to others, but it's not a self-return. It's not a stipend position for the faculty. It's something to do to spread some good community spirit. So, it's October right now, and it's always good to be excited and functioning. Let's just keep it going, right? I mean, I think it's off to a really wonderful start, and I think you hit all those key points in your report. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bimson. Any questions or comments from board members? Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Are they going to have a King's Court again?
Yes, they have. So the court looks a little different this year. They decided to kind of get rid of old gender affiliations with it. So instead of just having a king and a queen, they made everyone a royal. So they call it Rutherford Royals instead. But there are still, the kids can vote, boy or girl, 2 from each grade as, the homecoming royal.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Ms. Ahmed?
What time does the parade start?
I want to say 11. I'm pretty sure last year was
I think
11 a.m.
It's a little later. I think it's kicks off from here around 11:30. Now, you
11:30.
probably have to be here.
They have to report at 11. Yeah.
So 11:30,
Sorry.
11:45.
11:30 probably. Yeah.
In that ballpark.
Yeah. Union Ave is when it's
Union Avenue
the
down to the
most
field.
fun. Yeah.
I usually go standing out on Union Avenue for
Yeah.
a long time, so I'm trying to figure out before the parade.
11. Yeah, probably around that ballpark.
Oh.
Believe it or not, I used to jump on a motorcycle when I was principal. Yeah, I used to sit on the back of. we had a teacher who rode a motorcycle, and I used to get on the back and ride that way. And everybody thought it was because I wanted to look cool on the motorcycle. I just didn't want to have to walk a mile and a half to the
It's
field.
super fun. Yeah.
Mr. Hurley, do you have photos of you on the motorcycle?
That was when for those of you who remember history, that was Rosemary Woods was my secretary at that time, and she shredded those. You have to remember Watergate for that. But there's only a few of us in the room who probably remember that. No, I don't. I don't. But, and one time, the teacher, who will remain nameless, we got, and the other thing that was good, I was able to like scoot around if I thought there was something going on in the back, no pun intended. And somehow we got delayed a little bit, and he decided to take a shortcut to catch up the parade, and his bike broke down. So now we're like 2 blocks off the beaten path in a broken down bike. I'm having a helmet on. I have to somehow find my way back to the parade. But anyway, the next question is, do I miss that stuff? And I'll say yes, but
All right,
That's
other
all.
questions or comments from Ms. Bimson? All right, well, hearing none, thank you so much for your report. We
you.
look forward to your reports
Yeah.
each board meeting, so thank you. And if you would like to stay for the rest of the meeting, feel free. If you have homework to do or other commitments, we understand as well.
Every time it's homework. I honestly would stay. Next time I'll try and get it. But
Sounds good.
thank you.
Well, have a great evening.
thank you.
So we are going to move on now to the report of the superintendent.
Thank you. We had a meeting just 2 weeks ago. We have another one in 2 weeks because of the change in the calendar. Again, I want to remind everyone that back in the spring, we moved the October 24th meeting to October 17th because the School Boards Association altered their convention date from what used to be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. On that meeting on the 17th, we will meet first in the auditorium because as tonight we'll do the Board of Ed Awards, and the meeting would begin up there. And then after the awards are presented to the students, we take a short adjournment and come back down and do the rest of the meeting here. I do want to say that it's the largest number of students who are going to be receiving awards. I think somewhere in the neighborhood of 250, which is astonishing. So it's such a big, large number of students that we're actually going to, and we can only fit about 600 in the auditorium, including the balcony. So we're going to allow 2 parents to come and then have the students staged in classrooms and bring them in first year, second year, third year, because we just can't fit everybody in the auditorium. So just be aware that the program will be a little longer than usual, not so much because of any rhetoric that's going to come from us, because we're going to be calling over 250 names. So, and if all in one night, yep, all in one night. So during COVID, when we couldn't have the crowd, and we did it those separate evenings. But so anyway, for the public, if you it's going to be crowded up there, and if you want to come to the normal part of the meeting, you could figure about 8 o'clock we'll be moving down here, but it could be a little bit later depending on the students, how that moves along.
So I'm sorry, Jack, what time do we start then?
A normal 7:30 start up at the auditorium. We'll
We're going to
start.
get 250 students done in a half hour?
We're going to go quick. It's like AM radio disc jockey. I'm really going down memory lane tonight, right?
And Jack gave me a mandate. My speech is as follows. Congratulations.
Well, I didn't really say that. I just said we have to be very brief because of the number of people, and he just read into that way.
Okay.
So anyway, moving along to construction. We Pierpont's. Well, first of all, the Pierpont in the high school, although they don't look done, they're very close to being done. It's punch list item time, and the punch list item stuff, as you know, often are little things that you don't even notice during the big construction, and then they become minor annoyances or inconveniences that have to get taken care of. But they're all moving along to take care of that. The last big piece in Pierpont is the multi-purpose room, which I guess we're going to start calling more a lunchroom, because now the gym serves more as a multi-purpose room. And that's going to be ready hopefully with the TCO on October 10th, which is a workshop day, so the kids will be moving in on October 11th, barring anything happening unusual there. If you were at back to school night there, you saw that the screen is operational now, which is nice. We're still dealing with some issues with the lockers there, as there was some delay in a few of the parts. It did not come in, so some of them are not 100% complete yet. We can't really assign them to students, but we're working on getting those parts in to get them fixed and operational. Here at the high school, again, some punch list items, things of that nature, but for the most part, we're done. And over at Union, there's a substantial completion date planned of October 17th. But again, I will really believe that when I see it. Okay, so we'll see how that goes. The Week of Respect that the state mandates for all schools is going on this week, October 3rd to October 7th, and there are a variety of activities in all the schools, age-appropriate activities. So in some schools it might be assemblies, in some schools it could be writing assignments, in some schools it could just be projects that are handed out. The Violence Awareness Week is scheduled for the week of 10/24, and again with age-appropriate activities. I also mentioned that week the Board of Ed's award on the 17th, rather, and that night I'll be doing the report of student achievement as well. Our student rep mentioned homecoming, which we went over. The last thing I want to report on is annually I have to provide a report to the board and to the public on graduation data, not the graduation rate, that's part of the report of student achievement, but I have to report on the number of students who met the state assessment requirement through the test, the state assessment test, either through the NJSLA, or this was the last class that still could revert back to, I think, Park. Okay, so last year we had 182 graduates, including those out-of-district students that were, and we had 168 in-house graduates, 14 out-of-district. Of the 168 really students who graduated, 98 met the state assessment through the Park or NJSLA for language arts, 50 through another test because they provide other competency assessments you could use, 19 through a portfolio appeal, which is presenting a body of work, and one was had alternate requirements through an IEP. In math, 104 met the requirement through the state assessment, 42 through a substitute competency assessment, 22 through portfolio appeal, and 0 students had to meet it through an IEP requirement. We had 0 students denied graduation as a result of not passing a state assessment. So again, that's an annual report that I have to provide. And that's it for my report.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hurley. Are there questions or comments by board members? No, hearing none. Then we will move on to the report of the president. So first off, I wanted to congratulate you, Mr. Hurley, and the administrators and faculty and staff on what seems like a very enthusiastic and positive beginning of the school year. It was great to hear Ms. Bimpson's student representative report. Always great to hear when the students are excited and energized by everything going on in the school. Couple of comments first around professional development. So I talked about making sure to provide any feedback about professional development. So NJSBA has their conference happening from October 24th to October 26th. It's at the Atlantic City Convention Center. Thank you to Ms. Jones, Mr. Healy are going to be attending that along with Mr. Hurley, Mr. Kelly, and Mr. Gamboa. If anyone else is interested in that in-person conference on October 24th to the 26th, you can speak with Mr. Kelly. We just would need to know very soon so that it goes on the October 17th agenda for approval. That conference is in person this year for the first time in a few years. Doing research, knowing that we all have different schedules as well, I wanted to bring to everyone's attention that NJSBA also has webinar trainings. So if you go onto their website, It's njsba.org/training/webinars. And they have a number of webinars that you can sign up for. It's not super up to date, so they have things from early this year up through now. The one thing that they did have was on October 11th at 11:30, there's a workshop on cybersecurity. Everything else has already happened. So they're going to keep updating their site, but there are webinars available as well on there. So I'll keep everyone updated about relevant ones that are potentially coming up. And also per the note that Mr. Hurley had sent us beforehand about big events coming up for board members to consider attending in the month of October. We've got 11:30 a.m. is the homecoming parade, and then 1 p.m. is the homecoming game. That is this Saturday, October 8th. And then, of course, October 17th are 250 awards going out to all of the students. That's super exciting. So look forward to congratulating all of them on that date. So those are some October dates of things that we can attend. Also wanted to acknowledge our board goals. So I'm going to name the 3 board goals. And so tonight the goal is for us to have a discussion to see what the board's thoughts are about the board goals that we've put together. And then assuming everyone's comfortable with those goals, they'll go on the October 17th agenda for approval. So we had 3 goals that we have for the board this year. The first is to develop and implement a board community outreach communications plan. The second is that the board will work with the superintendent to develop a plan to ensure the smooth transition of leadership in the district. And the third is to enable board members to enhance board cohesiveness by attending or participating in school activities, training workshops, and community events. So unique to this year, I wanted to thank again Mr. Conti, who's the chair of strategic planning, who reached out to each board member to really get feedback about what you'd like to see in the board goals that we have this year. So after Mr. Conti collected all of those, we met as a strategic planning committee, and these goals are a reflection of everything that folks have wanted to potentially see on there as goals for us for this year. So I want to thank you all for doing that. And also as chair of strategic planning, Mr. Conti, hand it over to you if there's anything you want to say about the goals or process.
No, it was an interesting experience, I have to say. Again, being able to talk to everybody, getting some feedback, and like I said previously, how we were aligned on we all had a lot of similar thoughts and stuff like that. It was interesting that when we had our committee meeting, trying to narrow down to distill what can be a real goal and how do we measure it and stuff like that versus like things that we as a board need to focus on regardless of whether it's a goal or not. So that was an interesting experience that I think certainly it's got from the strategic planning point of view, it certainly has me thinking a lot more along those lines. So
yeah, thank you, Mr. Conti. So we'd love to open it up. Just any feedback if board members are comfortable with these goals. Any reactions, thoughts that you want to share about them?
They're good goals. They cover a wide span, and they're all ones that are achievable. We just have to put our heads together and just get it done.
All right, excellent. Mr. Mazzone?
Yeah, I just appreciated the methodology that was employed, having Chris reach out to each of us. Chris, thank you. I know you spent a lot of time making phone calls and having some discussion back and forth, but I think we've landed a good place for the board.
Okay. Any other comments? All right. Well, again, thank you, Mr. Conti, and thank you to everyone for giving your feedback. So these will then go on to the October 17th agenda for approval. So that concludes the President's report. Any questions or comments before we move on?
Yeah,
Mr. Ely.
Just a comment about the courses that New Jersey SBA offers. Some of them, and Mrs. Joan, others might know this, but the ones that are labeled statewide or regional professional development programs, you actually get credit for those. And I'm sure most know you have a portfolio on the New Jersey SBA site that goes towards your certificates for certified and master board member, and there's another level too. I believe Ms. Jones is that. But that's the idea, that you look at those courses and possibly melded into something that you'll get credit for on the New Jersey SBA record.
Got it.
I took one this past week, the 28th Labor and Employment Summit, which directly relate, but actually all the topics that were in there were that we talk about, things we talk about. And there's no transcript yet, but when I get the transcript, I'll report on it. I'll give you a little detail just so everyone has a flavor for how deep they go and it's meaningful. They had some good speakers still. That's it.
Yep. All right, thank you. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff on there. Even the webinars, if you look at the past ones, they really cover a wide variety of topics that we discuss either in the various committees or in our meetings. So it's definitely worth keeping up to date on those aspects. Ms. Jones?
To that, the Bergen County meetings, they used to always just be in person, but now they give you the opportunity to either go in person or watch it online. And they're at night, you can possibly tune in when they're on too. You get credit for that also.
Gotcha. All right. Any other comments or questions? All right, hearing none, then we are going to move on to the next part of the meeting. So typically we have two times where the meeting's open to the public. First for agenda-related items, and then for items related or not related to the agenda. Out of courtesy, I did get an email that a couple of community members might want to speak this evening. So we're going to open it up now to comment either related or not related to the agenda, just because it did receive an email in advance about that. And just wanted to mention, as per sort of our board policy and rules, so when we have an open session, it's really important that we all are able to hear opinions of the public. It's not a back and forth, but we are listening, we are taking notes, and at the end of the open session, either myself as board president or Mr. Hurley, may choose to address comments that have been raised or may follow up afterward. We ask people to limit their time to 3 minutes per speaker. So at this time, it's 7:57 p.m. I'd love to open it up to the public for comments related to or not related to the agenda. So just ask you to come up to the microphone, and we'll just ask you to say your full name and your address, and then you'll have the opportunity to speak.
My name is Frank Marcico. I live at 164 Mortimer Avenue, right across the street. I have some show and tell items I'd like to hand out for everybody to see, because we're talking about a visual element, the sign on Mortimer Avenue, and we'd like you each to have the collage of what we will talk about. I don't think it's going to work. Sorry about that. I was saying I'm Frank Marcico, neighbor of the high school. With me is my wife, Michelle, our neighbors, Helen and Jerry Schneider, and we live next door to each other at the corner of Fairview and Mortimer. We'd like to thank the Board of Education for your service. We respect that it's a volunteer position, and thank you for that. We're not adversaries here. All we want are the same things for Rutherford, to be as good as it can be and to look as good as it can look. And we think we've been good neighbors, good stewards here in living across the street, as you know, has challenges and issues because of the high school and because of children of that age that happen. We've been living here over 35 years, and when they was told they could not smoke on the school grounds, of course they all came over and smoked on our steps and on our lawn. stepping on things and left the cigarette butts in the litter. Well, the cigarette butts have gone, but the litter still hangs out. I mean, we know what Johnny did on his test. We know what he had for lunch, and we know what the kids on Friday night, what kind of beer they were drinking. In any event, we each put, our family was 4. That was good. Just, our family has 4 children went through the school system. We know Mr. Hurley from the days of our oldest, and from then on. Helen and Jerry put 5 children through the school system, and we're all happy with how the kids have turned out and how they were educated. At one point in time, the police department asked if they could do observance from our home through our front window because they knew that there was particular deals being done in front of on the street of Mortimer Avenue in Fairview near the high school that were about drugs. So we've extended ourselves in many ways to do that. Then about 2 weeks ago, we were driving back, my wife and I, from a trip. One of our sons called us and told us about this big sign. He said, they got this big sign. We arrived at our house and were stunned, literally, physically, by the installation of this, quote, sign. The sheer size of the sign overwhelms you. The size of the letters and the images are over the top. They're out of human scale. We wondered why something of this size is here. It seems like it was dropped from an alien spaceship. And as being at ground level, the metallic hard and sharp cornered piece is really not friendly due to this size and the materials of this. In fact, I consider it an aggressive structure. And I'll get into that a little more when we talk about the photographs. The precedent that we lived under, that was set 37 years ago, and the sign does not align with that. That little tract of land there, one time had trees, another time always has dog droppings, and there's other things that go on there. But the windows were there before the sign was put up, and they were covered. They were opaque, so you couldn't really look in, and they're still opaque, so you can look in. We could, as soon as possible, we forwarded an email to the Board of Ed and expressed our reaction and our concern about this sign. We wanted to know why and how this decision to place this billboard was made. Why did it have to be so far out of human scale, close to that small quarters? This is not MetLife Stadium or Route 17, where you get to look at a sign on the spur of you drive by it at 60 miles an hour. This is a sign that we look at day in and day out, every morning, every night. We have to put up with that visual element staring back at us that doesn't really work for what the potential intentions are. And the intentions were given to us in the responsive email, which we appreciate very much. And we broke it into the few parts that we could. One was the sign was put there for privacy. Even though the windows behind the sign are in the locker room, they're already frosted and opaque. You can't see through them. So the privacy issue was already solved. The sign didn't do anything to increase the privacy. In fact, it makes people curious. And even if you go there now, behind the sign are leaves and cigarette butts and other things, and we can be sure they'll find condoms and other things in there as time goes on. That unfortunately, because the sign will collect that, because the sidewalk collected that for a period of time.
Mr. Marsico,
Yep.
Before you continue, so we try to ask those who are speaking to keep it to 3 minutes, so you're close to 5 minutes, so I do want to ask you just to...
I'll go as fast as I can.
Thank you, I appreciate
just
it.
for a background from myself, I have a Master in Fine Arts from New York University to School of the Arts. I was a scholarship student. I'm a member of the American Society of Cinematographers. I'm a member of the American Society of Lighting Directors. I've worked with the architect of the Capitol in Washington, D.C. on many projects, and I studied art history, and I taught at the School of Visual Arts. So I have an education in aesthetics, and the aesthetic of this sign doesn't really work. If you look on the photographs, if you notice that at the bottom row, from left to right, the first one is the Elliott Place entrance. And if you notice it, it's rounded arch. It has wonderful bush shrubbery around it, has lamp posts, and it has a sign. And the sign says about the school being of one of the School of National Excellence. And you can read it from where I took the picture, which is approximately 100 feet away. So the lettering is no taller than 12 inches at the largest side. I didn't get up and measure it. The next one is Lincoln School. On the right, you can see the word Lincoln at the top of it, and that tells you where you are. The next one is Washington School. Up on the left there above Lincoln School is the new wing of Union School, and those letters are maybe 12 inches tall, and they're attached to the wall. Pierpont, you can see the sign on that above the entrance there, and you can see at Lincoln School on the right, and then Washington School, the bottom two, the one Washington School sign at the corner. You see the rounded edges, the welcoming greenery, the welcomeness to it. The last one on the bottom is the homepage of the town's website. Now you look at that and you say, well, this is how the senior people in the town want anyone who looks up our website to look and see. It's a welcome, it's in a gazebo, it's a rounded piece, a lot of greenery, it's warm and friendly. The sign that says Home of the Bulldogs is not warm and friendly. It's an aggressive sign that belongs down at Memorial Field or somewhere else. It doesn't belong on a residential street in the town here, in this neighborhood. This is a close neighborhood. Small, it's not that big, even though Mortimer's a bit wide. The other photographs at the top show the scale. The first one, you see those two orange dots, those are people. That's the scale of the sign to a human being. One of the design things you do is you try to keep architecture and so forth relative to the human scale. The next sign shows the distance from the center of the sidewalk to the wall where the sign is. That's 12 feet away. But the next one is the sign on the back of the building. It's an identical sign, two identical signs. One, you can see my wife Michelle standing there, the scale of her relative to that sign. But the next one over at the top, you'll see I've pasted in a tractor trailer to give you an idea of the scale of this sign. Now this is the back sign, and that picture was taken from 150 feet away. 150 feet. The one on the left is 50 feet away. It's from my front yard. The lighting in the sign, I can't tell what's what because the lights haven't been on enough to know. But I do know that the light emanating from the locker room windows through the sign makes it impossible to read what's on the sign. You're not going to read that front of the sign unless you have light coming from the front. So the lighting, the only time I looked at it was when it was focused down on the ground from the bottom of the sign. The other two little drawings show the photographs show the windows behind the sign and the sign itself with its perforation. The next one on the far right is the front entrance, which has become very bright relative to what it was before the improvement, quote unquote. And the light on the left of the entrance is what I call a point source light, which is your brightest light, your most efficient light. It's what opticians and optical people creating lighting fixtures strive for, to work with a point source. It's very bright. The doorway's very bright, and it all stays on, and it's on 24/7. So how are you? It goes into our windows. It goes into our house. It infringes on our right of quiet enjoyment. So, with all this being said, and based on my humble, educated opinion, this, what I call a billboard, does not belong here. And I know everybody has their own personal taste, but I ask if you would show me your hands if you want this sign put 50 feet from your house across the street. I rest my case.
All right, thank you. Are there other members of the public who wish to speak at this time?
I did want to thank you. I apologize, but I thank you very much that I didn't say that.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Michelle Marsico. I'm Frank's wife, and I don't know. Can you hear me? Okay. I'm just going to finish what he was trying to cover from the email we received back from Mr. Lottie. The first reason that we were given for the installation of this outrageous sign was privacy, which I think he covered, except he forgot to mention that the perforated aluminum, even if the windows weren't opaque, the perforated aluminum would be like a gazillion peepholes if people were in the locker room. And the other thing to really note is that the exact same room has the same windows on Fairview that have no obstruction over them. They have no screening over them. So this excuse that we needed these screens for privacy is bogus. The second excuse was that we needed it for security, that those windows, those few windows on that side of the building, which for 37 years our eyes rested on, had to be covered with these gigantic lettered screens for security, while the rest of Mortimer Avenue is almost entirely glass. The nurse's office has windows up to here. I mean, this is ridiculous. That's an insult to our intelligence. Okay, the third reason they said is that out-of-town visitors can find the gym. Well, first of all, nobody had trouble finding the gym for 37 years, okay? We have Google, we have Waze, we have all of these navigation systems. People look at address, they find it. They can't find parking, but they can find the gym, okay? And the fourth reason, what was it, Frank? Oh, wait a minute. Oh, that it would add an attractive appeal to the gym. Well, that, of course, is a matter of personal taste, but I don't think something this urban, this industrial, this foreign to a residential block should be at ground level. I saw kids today being bounced off of that thing when they were leaving school. They were horsing around, bouncing each other off of that screen. This is an atrocity to our residential street, and I am personally offended by it. And I am saddened that they thought this was a good idea. So that's my point of view. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Helen Schneider, neighbors with Michelle.
Could you just give us your address? We got their address.
174 Mortimer Avenue.
Okay, thank you.
So between Michelle and myself, we have passed through 9 children in a span of 12 years through Rutherford High School. And when we bought the house about 40 years ago, we made a conscious decision. We knew the house was across the high school. So there are certain expectations, the parking, the litter, the children, and we accept that. And before I forget, the lawn mowing at 8 o'clock Sunday morning, you got to do something about that. Okay? But the sign just doesn't go with the decor of the block that we live in. You know, we're part of the high school community, and I think Michelle and Frank had brought up a point that one of the reasons the board said was so that everybody could find the high school. Well, if you were to look at the picture and you look at the second row, when the sign at nighttime, you can't read the signs. Do you see that? You can't even read it. So that goes that idea that they could find it. So as soon as dusk comes, you cannot read it at all. So I do respectfully ask that you reconsider kind of making something on a smaller scale, maybe on top of the entranceway, gym, Rutherford High School, or something. I get the point that you want to put some kind of sign, but as it is, it just doesn't go with the aesthetic of the town or the whole school system in general. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We have anyone else who would like to speak?
And I do want to thank you for all the nice work you did for the rest of the high school. It's a vast improvement, what we have at the past 40 years. So thank you for that.
Thank you. All right. Oh, do you want to speak?
Yeah. Jerry Schneider, 174 Mortimer Avenue. Previously 186 Mortimer Avenue. I was 5 years old when I moved into that house with my parents, and the school was, I was born in 54, and the school was built, I think, in 59. It says there on the building. So I've seen the empty field that was across the street that my brother and our family used to play in. Then I saw, I don't remember the school going up, but it was there every morning waking up. And, it's been great living on the avenue, on Mortimer Avenue. That's why I haven't left, I guess. But with the sign, I hear that for school support and a booster, You know, maybe if you put it on the gym wall, it would be like a nice sign for the pep rallies in the gym. Move that sign, it'd be a bigger wall than that wall that it's on the street. I mean, in proportion to the wall, it's covering the whole building. You don't even see the building anymore. All it is a sign. And if it was a sign, I would say, you know, put Rutherford High School. That's what we're proud about, Rutherford High. And like, again, the Bulldogs and everything is great, but for the learning that my kids went through and my neighbors went through, I mean, Rutherford is pretty proud to be put on the building. And, well, that's it. I just hope you would consider what we've been saying, and thank you.
Thank you. Other comments from the public? Okay, hearing none, then at 8:15 p.m., we're going to close the meeting to the public. I'm going to say a couple of things. I'd like to first thank everyone who came up to speak. I know it's not easy to, you know, come up and prepare to speak in front of a microphone, but I think I speak for the board when we say that we always appreciate hearing community feedback. I think it's important for us to understand, you know, how the community is feeling about different aspects of what's happening in our schools. Also appreciate the visuals, appreciate your gratitude of everything that, you know, we've tried to do to be stewards of the referendum and the facility projects. And I do take to heart what you said about being good neighbors and stewards, and do appreciate your involvement in the community and all your children who've been through the schools over the years. So first and foremost, I want to say two things outright. You know, the first is that as a board in the appropriate committee with Mr. Hurley and Mr. Kelly, we will review your concerns. As a board in an open session in the night of a board meeting, we don't make decisions on the spot. So we actually have, you know, honestly have to go back and review those things. But I've been taking notes, and I know that we're taking notes on the things that you're mentioning. I did want to mention a little bit about how the board works, as well as some history on the screens, and then I'll just end with what the next steps are. So in terms of how our board works, the majority of our board work is in committees, and we have 6 different committees, so we really work through a distributive leadership model. We have a policy committee, personnel, finance, building and grounds, strategic planning, curriculum, and instruction. So we're a strategic board, so that means that with a referendum project like this, we work at a strategic level. So our Buildings and Grounds Committee, for example, they track the scope of work that's going to be completed, meeting timelines, soundboarding construction or company issues that come up. Our Finance Committee has been tracking the budget with Mr. Kelly to make sure we're on or under budget. So because we're not an operational board, our voting was voting to approve the different facility projects that would be done overall. We, as a board, we provide counsel to the superintendent, to the business administrator on project matters to make sure it aligns with our overall strategy. So while we do give counsel on, you know, specific things like, you know, are we going to have screens, and, you know, to what extent are we going to have how many different screens, the specific nuances, we don't vote on those aspects, and we don't make decisions on things like the color of paint in classrooms and things like that. We leave those decisions to the operational leaders of the school, which would be Mr. Hurley, Mr. Kelly, and the building administrators and the architects. So in terms of the history of the screens, we did have conversations in our Buildings and Grounds Committee about the number of screens, where the screens would be located, and we also discussed it as a whole board. And one thing that was identified early was that we all had opinions and we had personal taste that was actually quite varied on what we thought about the screens, the nature of them, where they would go. And originally there were a number of screens, I know I put this in an email, that were vertical screens that were going to go up over a number of the windows that are actually on that building facade that would have faced your home. And we decided that we didn't want the buildings have that kind of industrial look, so we went with a much more conservative approach to not have those vertical screens on there, and just to have the screens that are currently where they are. And we also talked about how our own taste, we all have different opinions about things, so we can't make decisions based on taste or even give counsel based on that. So we really have to think about, overall, what are the strategic pieces that as a board we think about. So with the external aspect of the project, allegiance to our school colors, making sure that new buildings that have, brick facade match the current brick facade. I did mention the idea of adding privacy. I did mention in that email the idea of the added appeal and the school spirit. I did not mention being able to find the high school. I will say that we did talk about the neighborhood in particular when we talked about the number of screens and the look they were going to have. And so that's how we end up with the ones that we did. What I will say is overall, hear your concerns. We do value your feedback. There are a lot of moving parts, as I'm sure you know. Can be a domino effect if you consider one change, what impact that has potentially on other things that come with additional costs that impact the budget, taxpayers. But that being said, we'll speak with Mr. Kelly and Mr. Hurley to understand. We'll review the decision making, we'll review the process, the outcome, and a review how and if we might be able to address the concerns that you've raised, and what would be associated with that. So that is a commitment in terms of our next steps. I will turn it over to Mr. Hurley if there's anything else you'd like to say as well.
No, I think Dr. Lottie covered it. I do want to mention the lights. We're not done yet. The project is in punch list time, and there's still we opened up to get the kids back in school, and one of the things that have not been remedied yet are the placement, the lights, the way the lights are going to function. In fact, that's something that's an ongoing process right now. So I agree with you. The way the current lights are not aren't effective. In fact, they're obliterating a sign, not showcasing it. But even the lights along the building, there's still work that we're working on with that. But I think Dr. Lottie covered the rest.
Okay. So again, want to thank you for that. And now we are going to move on to the regular portion, closed portion of the meeting. Where am I? Just give me 1 second there.
Personnel.
Over here. Found it. I have all my notes. All right. So we are going to move on now to new business, where there is action to be taken, and we will start with personnel. And I'll hand it over to Ms. Ahmed.
Thank you, Doug. Tonight we have 15 motions to approve. Board's approval will pass, hopefully. The first one is Sabrina Piscata, number 1, teacher assistant at Washington School. Mandy Hart, number 2, to approve her as a special education teacher at Pierpont School also. Jacqueline McLaughlin, to approve her as an elementary teacher at Pierpont. 4, Barbara Witten-Limbo, as a lunch monitor in kindergarten center. 5, Jacob Rettenberger, to accept his resignation. 6, employee 1950, as a maternity leave with disability. 7, 6th class is for approve a 250 stipend for a half-year course for the following high school teachers. In Rutherford High School would be Holly Basilo, Jessica Filato, Jennifer McLaughlin, John O'Hanlon, Andrew Vanderhook. And number 8, high school co-curricular, to approve the assignment of the stipend for the band front director. 9, clinical field placement, to approve the following field placements for the Rutherford School District, for Victoria Corolla, Montclair State University. Psychology practicum placement, special services, Peter Rapone, Pierpont School, September 2022, December 22, 1 day per week. 10, travel reimbursements for Maria DeChizio, Heidi Rodriguez, Donna Siegenthaler, Madison DeBakian. And then we have an addendum to the regular meeting That'll be 11 through 15, 11 Bulldog Care Counselors before and after. And that is for, to rescind Jacob Rettenberger, Diane Hesney, Karen Skirbo, and 12 to also approve for lead counselor Jacob Rettenberger as a lead counselor. 13 Bulldog Care Counselor before and after to approve Abru Attest as a counselor for the Bulldog Care program. And 14 Bulldog Care lead counselor to rescind Linda Mermini as a lead counselor. 15 Bulldog Care counselor before and after, and approve Linda Mermini as a counselor for the Bulldog Care program. So with the board's approval, I'd like to call a vote for items 1 through 15, personnel.
All right. Ms. Hurley, anything on these?
No, unless anybody has any questions.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none. All right, Ms. Ahmed moved these. Do we have a second? Mr. Bogosian, any last questions or comments? Hearing none. Ask Mr. Kelly to please take roll.
Mrs. Ahmed,
Yes.
Mr. Bogosian,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Healy,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone,
Yes.
Dr. Racine,
Yes.
Mr. Sprayberry,
Yes.
Dr. Alati.
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll move on now to curriculum and instruction. Ms. Jones.
We did not have a CNI meeting. Tonight there are 9 resolutions which have been put forth on the recommendation from the superintendent. Number 1, uniform memorandum of agreement. This is for this school year. Resolutions 2, 3, and 4 have to do with overnight trips for the wrestling team, for the swimming team, and for the high school choir and band. Resolution 5 has to do with out-of-district placements, and there are 4. 6 is field trips, and there are 24. 7 is emergency bus evacuation drills. Resolution 8 is a home instruction for 2 students. 9 is high school co-curricular for 2 advisors, Melissa Dugard and Chelsea Leary, both of them co-advisors. And that is it for CNI.
All right, thank you, Ms. Jones. Questions or comments?
Just as a point of clarification, the wrestling team and the swimming team, obviously their seasons haven't even begun yet, but in the event that athletes individually or as a team qualify, we like to get that approved early because often that qualification might come, and the meets or the match the next week, and we don't have a board meeting to approve it. The band is a trip that they take every couple of years. There is one item, the actual date of the trip is June 8th to June 10th, so maybe the minutes can reflect that, Mr. Kelly, instead of June 6th, it's June 8th. And the memorandum of agreement is an annual sign-off that I do. I meet with the police chief, Russo, and that's just to go over the regulations that the police have to follow in terms of involvement in school and when we have to go call the police in and when we don't, and so on and so forth. That has to be done every year around this time. The state is due for a revision of that memorandum of agreement, but they didn't get it done yet. So it's likely that we might get a revision and have to approve it for a second time this year. And that that number 9 is the club I referred to before when I commented on the student reps report. Students came forward with this and another idea, which will probably be on the next meeting's agenda, of service clubs. And this is the one that writes letters to students, have become pen pals, for lack of a better word, with senior citizens. So that's some clarification on all those.
All right, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, Ms. Jones.
I move resolutions 1 through 9 under curriculum and instruction.
All right, we have a second. Mr. Healy, any last questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. Kelly, please take roll.
Mrs. Ahmed,
Yes.
Mr. Bogosian,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Healy,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone,
Yes.
Dr. Racine,
Yes.
Mr. Sprayberry,
Yes.
Dr. Alati.
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on now to finance. Dr. Racine.
Today we only have one item on the agenda. It's going to be like 100 next month. Okay. This is the third item is the approval of bills, and that's it.
All right. Want to move those?
I'd like to move that.
No, that one. We have a second. Mr. Mazzone, any last questions or comments? Hearing none. Mr. Kelly?
Mrs. Ahmed?
Yes.
Mr. Bogosian?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Sprayberry?
Yes.
Dr. Awadi?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you. We will move on now to policy. Mr. Healy, anything
Yes,
to report?
No, we did not have a committee meeting since our last board meeting, and there are no policy motions for this evening.
All right, thank you. Then we will move on to buildings and grounds. Mr. Sprayberry.
Good evening. We have one motion, but before I put that up for, I'd like to say that I was attended back to school night at Pierpont with Mr. Conti, and it was really, really great. The energy around the room, having that big of a room to have all the parents there and stuff. There were some speakers speaking in the microphone, which creating a little feedback. So me and Mr. Conti were both crawling, because we're audio guys. Sounds phenomenal, looks phenomenal, but just the energy and the buzz from my son, from the other students in there, and the teachers, the parents, and stuff. It was just really phenomenal to see. So great job. So we have one motion for the floor at Union Middle School for cat cord construction. I think we've done work with those before, correct, Mr. Kelly?
I'm sorry?
We've done work with the cat cord before.
Yes, they had built the 2 additional classrooms at Lincoln School.
So great job with them. But I'd like to put one motion for the approval of the board.
All right, questions or comments? Nope, hearing none. All right. Yeah, Ms. Ahmed?
You have to give credit where credit is due. Pierpont School, every time I used to go there, I got depressed in the auditorium. And over the years, I've gone to meetings there even, and I was so ashamed of that auditorium. And the other day, when they had, or it was like the beginning of the school year, they had some big fair going on in there with, I don't know what they called it. You know what I'm talking
In
about?
March, the food fair, the food drive, the REA does.
I don't know. It was the most wonderful thing I've ever experienced in the school system. I think better than any gym that I was in, and just the fact that finally this place was beautiful, and I'm so proud of what the builders did and how it turned out. And I thank the board for doing such a good job.
All right, thank you. All right, so Mr. Sprayberry.
Yep, I'd like to put one motion number 1 up for approval, please.
All right, Ms. Jones is second. Any last questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. Kelly, please take roll.
Mrs. Ahmed?
Yes.
Mr. Bogosian?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Sprayberry?
Yes.
Dr. Awadi?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on now to old business. Any board members have any old business they'd like to raise? Mr. Conti and then Ms. Jones.
Well, I just wanted to add on to Mr. Sprayberry's comment there. I had the good fortune of attending Parents' Night at both Pierpont and Union, and one of the most striking comments that was made to me, completely unsolicited, when I was at Pierpont was how amazing the facility is and everything, but how much smaller the class sizes were. And I had multiple teachers, multiple parents just make offhanded comments. Oh, I used to have 20 some odd kids, and now I only have 16 or 17 or 18 kids. And I mean, it was a noticeable difference in the classrooms, just how big they were and spacious, and everything in there looked amazing. And it was interesting to go into different classrooms and hear parents just like, wow, this is, just hear the enthusiasm in it was really awesome.
If I can comment on that, the year we initiated the referendum, whatever year that was, 2018, going forward, we were averaging 27 to 29 students in a class at Pierpont, and as we talked about at that time, those rooms were built at a different time, different era, different century, beginning of the last century. And they didn't have to accommodate computers and co-teachers and tables and things of that nature, right? We all sat in rows. And so now we're at anywhere from 18 to 22, 23, depending on the grade level. And we look at some bubbles coming up in some of the primary grades. The numbers might creep up again to 24 or 25, but they would have been 30 without those rooms. And the other thing, we need to keep in mind that we designed some rooms there with the ability to house special education classes if they're needed. The same at Lincoln by putting the bathrooms in those classes. If we have to go with a kindergarten class or a special ed class, whatever, we can accommodate that. So one of the things that I think in the current, you're 100% right. That was the most overcrowded building we had, and that was the tightest building we had. Yep. And now we've solved that. And if it gets big again, well, it would have been a lot bigger without this. And so I appreciate the comments, and I'm glad people are noticing that. Yeah,
it definitely went totally. A lot of people made unsolicited comments about that. Was pretty good. The other feedback that I had gotten. I went to a union, so I got to see you twice. Got to hear your same speech twice.
Somebody's telling me the TV puts on 10 pounds. I don't know if that's true or not.
But I will say that several people said to me that they thought, particularly your speech regarding school security was, it was on point and it actually reassured quite a few people. Right. Was the feedback I received.
Thank you again, and to use Mr. Mez's line about giving credit where credit's due. It's several parents, a handful or two, had reached out to me back in May, June, when the events unfolded in Texas, and I appreciate that several of them reached back out to me to say they appreciated the message, and that was good. And one of the things I wanted to ensure by doing the video was that that the same message was heard by everybody. And even if I give it 5 or 6 different times, it's not going to be the same. And I wanted to make sure everybody heard the same message. And one of the things that has also happened in the referendum, which is not advertised again, but a lot of things are going on with security there too, with access cards being upgraded and more uniformed, cameras being upgraded, different window being installed that are better and more secure. So a lot of things have happened to improve what I think was already a pretty good plan. So I appreciate those comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gandhi. Ms. Jones.
I also went to Pierpont School. I was delighted to see everybody there and heard Mr. Hurley's talk on safety, which I also agree was very good. One other thing I would just like to add on the Rutherford Day, the 20th, I believe it was, of September, we had a volleyball game for Shelley McKenna. She was a volleyball player and basketball and softball player, 3-sport athlete, who unfortunately has ALS. And they asked that we buy a shirt as the entrance fee to see the game. It was wonderful. They had our former athletes, and they weren't all volleyball players. We had basketball coaches playing. It was a very nice event. Mm-hmm. Varsity players in their time playing each other. The varsity girls played, and they did win the game on their regular schedule. But it was very nice. And I am very proud because I have always wanted to win at 50-50 and give back the money. And so I lucked out, and my ticket won. It was a whole lot of money, but it was fun to be able to say, no. She's a lovely young lady. I did see her down at the field on Rutherford Day.
Yeah.
I wish her luck.
Yeah, it was a nice event, and again, I give Coach Anselides and who did a similar program when she was a softball coach, who no longer is, for a different charity for cystic fibrosis, and would have the opportunity for a game and some activities and some fundraising. And again, going back to what we said earlier in the evening, our students really do participate, and our staff. in helping others and giving back, and that's a good lesson.
Thank you, Ms. Jones, for sharing that. Any other old business?
If I may?
Mr. Kelly?
I'm sorry, I just wanted to say that I reviewed school board's records on your mandated training, and I signed anybody who's due for mandated training up for virtual training. So you should get a message from school boards telling you how to log in and take the class. If you didn't get a message, then you're all caught up. You don't need to do anything, but just want to advise you that it's out there, so just keep an eye out, please.
All right, thank you. Dr. Racine.
I was going to echo what was said back to school night and say it was my first time in the Union Gym and the Pierpont Wing, and it was just amazing. And right, so I can't wait to get to the science labs too. Right, it'd be nice if we can get another tour when these are finished to all see how it looks. It was like a whole new school.
Right.
It was amazing.
We talked about that. I don't remember whether we talked about that in committee or did we talk about that. I think we talked about that here. And we are going to figure out when the best time to do it. I'd like to do it when we could, even if it's not done, where Union School looks like a classroom, and it's getting close. It's getting close. So, we'll figure out a time for that. Also, I mentioned at the last meeting that our videographer extraordinaire, Mr. Met, Mr. Kelly and I met with Mr. Met, a lot of Mets in there, to review kind of an overview of doing a video tour that we could put on the website. And Steve is going to be working on that over the next couple of weeks. And again, trying to do it where, it's not too late in the year. We get it out maybe towards the end of October. But again, trying to do Union School towards the end to try to get as complete as we can. But yeah, I think it is remarkable, and when people see it for the first time, they're really amazed with it. But to Mr. Conti and some of the parents' point, it's the functionality of it that's even better. Because all of these areas have meaning and impact. I don't think it's a coincidence that when our student rep spoke, and I made the comment of the conversation I had with Mr. Morano today, that enthusiasm is up with a building at one longtime resident whose children have graduated a long time ago, emailed me and said, we look like we are in the 21st century now with the school. I think that's one of the reasons why the kids too are excited about it. Not the only reason, but I think that does have an impact on them, because from the outside the building looks great, but for those of you who did have the opportunity to walk through it, when you're in a classroom and how those windows look on the inside and how the view is outside and the air control in terms of heating and cooling and sounds and things like that, in terms of it's just a different atmosphere, and it can't help but make people a little more enthusiastic.
Pierpont especially, it was very noticeable. Remember last the first back when I was there was when I was in the fourth grade before the changes. You couldn't walk around, the desks were so jammed together, so many kids. Now they're very spacious.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I remember that because I got about 35 emails about that one. Right. But you're right. No, it's just that was the biggest addition, obviously, in terms of in-building impact, right? And it's wonderful. There's nothing else really to say about it. It's wonderful.
The two requests. One, if you do the video, can we do before after shots? Because people didn't realize at Union that there were bulges in those classrooms you're walking in, right?
I don't know if we have. We could. I don't know. I'm not sure. We might have something somewhere. Pictures. I don't know. Yeah. Mr. Met's going to ask for a raise now. He's here.
Number two, my personal pet peeve. People kept calling the outside building portables, and I keep asking when did they move left? Modular buildings, not portable.
Right. Well, the same with these buildings. These are temporary portables now, where the IT and the special ed is. They were put up in 1975, I think. Okay, and they were temporary. They were put up when we did the switch here from the junior high to the senior high to make it one high school. And we were on split sessions using half the building, so they put those up for 2 classrooms. And the idea was in 77 or 78, when it's done, they're going to come down. Well, they didn't say it could be 2178. They didn't say 1978. It could be 2078, 2178. They'll come down. No, we put the bathroom in, right? We did some upgrades. They're so portable that we've done revisions and upgrades to it. Right.
We don't plan on using Epic's thing out here for that long, do we?
Right. We might keep that there for a while. Yeah.
Ms. Jones, you had something, and then Mr. Mazzone.
On the class size, now the 6th grade and the 3rd grade are 2 biggest classes. I happen to have 2 great-grandchildren in those classes.
First grade's pretty big, too.
Are they 200?
Pretty close, maybe 199. Yeah.
Okay. But what I was going to say is my oldest great-granddaughter has had 25, 26 in her class. This year she has 20.
Yeah.
Because she's gotten benefits.
Yeah. Like I said, we added 2 grade sections to every level. So, it's just, and again, when those 200 come up, it's going to be, but it's never going to get to that where we were pushing 30. And so, I shouldn't say never, but it'd be hard to imagine we'll get to that. And, we also have flexibility now where we have the ability to give what they call specials and cycles, and maybe electives, or we're more used to that term, their own room, right? If we ever got really a huge bubble, then they could go back to floating around and still spread the kids out a little bit. So, it accomplished what it set out to do.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that I did do back to school night at Union as well as the high school. And here at the high school, I agree with the comments from board student rep. The energy in the school is really high. And I have to attribute part of it to the fact we have a new Bulldog mascot costume.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
I was told the last one was 40 years old.
Yeah.
And we have a new one. And
yeah.
I was told they use it at the pep rally.
Yep.
So
I saw the game the other night too.
Yeah. And
I have a picture with it.
And they used it at Pierpont's PBSIS, which is a program for positive behavior that Union has and Pierpont has. And they had their kickoff rally, and they had one of the teachers, actually the school nurse, put it on and came out. And the kids got a big kick out of that. So, it's 40. That other one was broken in nicely. It was.
I think that was an REF grant, correct?
For the Bulldog?
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't remember.
I believe it was. Yeah.
I think you're right. Not this year, but a year ago, I believe. Yeah. So, okay.
All right. Any other old business? Hearing none, we're going to move on to legislative update. Ms. Jones?
Just one tonight, please. This is Senate Bill 434 and Assembly Bill 4546. It has cleared the Senate Education Committee. They have looked favorably upon it. This bill requires school districts to include environmental sustainability plans in the long-range facility plan submitted to the Commissioner of Education. Every 5 years, each school district submits a long-range facilities plan to the Commissioner, which discusses projected enrollment, building capacities, health and safety conditions, and any anticipated facilities projects in the district. Under this bill, the district would also be required to submit an environmental sustainability plan, which would consider the environmental impact of district facilities and operation and set goals for improving sustainability. And then we would have to publish what we're doing with that also.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Jones. All right. So at 8:48 p.m., we are going to open the meeting up again to the public for any items related to or not related to the agenda. All right. Hearing none, at 8:49 p.m., we're going to close the meeting. We do not have a need for an executive session, so we'll take a motion to adjourn. Mr. Sprayberry, seconded by Mr. Mazzone. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.